Greetings, friends. You are on the Ruslan Belov channel, and today we will discuss the situation in Ukraine as of March 20th, 2025. A tremendous number of events have occurred today, so let's get started. Yesterday, a large number of pro-Russian sources published information that the first F-16 had been shot down. Everyone, of course, was waiting for the report from the Ministry of Defense of the Russian Federation, expecting that perhaps today, March 20th, this information would be confirmed by the relevant authorities. However, today the Ministry of Defense did not provide any information. Everyone came to the conclusion that most likely no F-16 was actually shot down. Perhaps something else was shot down, but in any case, nothing was mentioned in the latest report. Well, now let's move on to the front line, and we'll start with the Zaporizhzhia salient, where the map has been slightly adjusted. Pay attention, we have highlighted several areas in the region of Zaporizhzhia, as well as in the Kupiansk area, even with a slight, let's say, incursion into the territory that was controlled by Ukraine until yesterday. All these adjustments were made based on objective control footage. In the area between Melovoy and Gogolevka, footage was published. Here we can observe footage of not very good quality, but what do we see here? We see Russian soldiers moving through the tree lines, these ravines and fields. Operations are underway to clear the area of remnants of Ukrainian units. All this is being commented on, let's say, by Russian officers who are showing RIA Novosti where Russian soldiers are moving and where Ukrainian positions are. Some positions were geolocated, and it was precisely at this point that Russian units were moving. Information about such advances is also confirmed by various neutral cartographers. Based on the footage, the fields between the settlements of Goncharovka, Melovoy, and further towards the state border were slightly highlighted. A bit further up, in the Kupiansk territory, another objective control footage was published, and we see in very good quality the entry of Russian equipment into the territory of the settlement and movement along the entire Kupiansk. Here we see a huge amount of destroyed Ukrainian equipment, traces of fire, traces of combat, something is still burning, something is blazing, so it feels like the front line is literally 500 to 600 meters away. Based on this footage, we have concluded that the positions previously considered as contested territories in the Zaporizhzhia area are definitely under the control of Russian units, as the movement here was quite calm. Footage of captured equipment continues to be published, which is being pulled out from the settlement of Zaporizhzhia and the Zaporizhzhia agglomeration. Footage is being published of what is currently happening with the settlement, what Zaporizhzhia looks like after 6 to 7 months of combat. But overall, we see that gradually, even though the pace of the offensive and clearing operations has slowed down and is approaching zero, there is still some movement. There is movement, but if we talk about the last few days, the slowdown in the offensive and clearing operations is primarily due to the fact that the Ukrainian armed forces have been trying to break through the state border towards the Belgorod region, for the third day in a row, but so far nothing significant has come out of it for the Ukrainian side. Footage continues to be published of strikes on equipment that is just crossing the border. The Russian Federation, when it became clear on the third day that the Ukrainians do not plan to stop and are following a pattern, attacking every day, repeating the previous attack, decided to build up forces on this section of the front, and even brought in aviation. And today, a large amount of footage has been published of strikes on equipment that did not even manage to cross the border. Strikes from K-52s, the alligators are just destroying everything. Footage of drone strikes continues to be published, on engineering equipment, on various equipment. Here is a destroyed mine-clearing vehicle. So overall, even if in the previous few days we received footage a bit further north from this tree line, let's say even at the base of the settlement of Demidovka, today all the footage is from the state border. That is, Ukrainian units did not manage to move even a few hundred meters away from the state border before their equipment was destroyed, either by drones or aviation. And today, for the first time, footage from the settlement of Prylyssia was published. Here, the Ukrainian side also tried to cross the border in a Mangal tank, which was moving very slowly, but it did not manage to go far. It was first hit with a Lancet, then drones, and finally, this spot was covered by the Russian Federation with a multiple rocket launcher system. Overall, the offensive has stopped. A distinctive feature of the third day of combat operations in the Belgorod direction is, among other things, a large amount of footage published from rear positions. Here we see Ukrainian M777 artillery systems, which were used to strike Russian army positions supporting the offensive towards Demidovka and Grafovka. 3 axes, as they are called in Russia, were destroyed, and a bit further south, in the settlement of Krasnopolye, the first footage of strikes with FRBs, air-dropped bombs, and drone strikes on warehouses has already been published. So we can see that first the attack was halted, and now the Russian army has simply started working on the rear, destroying warehouses and artillery pieces. Overall, we can see that the offensive has fizzled out before it even began. Next, we move to the northern Kupiansk direction, where fierce fighting continues, and the Russian army is gradually encircling the village of Kamenska from 2 sides. We can see that Kamenska, according to information published by both pro-Russian military cartographers, neutral mapping services, and pro-Ukrainian sources, if all this information is correct and summarized, clearly shows that the settlement of Kamenska has been pincered by Russian units today. Soon, within the next day or two, the Ukrainian armed forces will be forced to begin a retreat from Kamenska. Otherwise, Ukrainian units will be encircled. Another settlement along the Oskol River is apparently coming under the control of the Russian armed forces. And here, there is a very, very important point that I missed at the beginning of the video, but now I'll address it, as it might be more relevant at this moment. Today, some very reliable pro-Russian sources reported that during a phone call between Putin and Trump, Putin conveyed a very important message to Trump. He said that the Russian Federation expects that in the near future, not in 6 months, not in a year, not in a decade, but in the near future, Trump and the United States of America must officially recognize Crimea, Donetsk, Luhansk, Zaporizhzhia, and Kherson as part of the Russian Federation. This must be done at an official level, and in return, as a favor from the Russian Federation, the following action will be taken. The Russian side pledges, in the course of further combat operations and negotiations, not to make claims on Odessa or other territories of Ukraine. This was reportedly said to Trump. Perhaps it's all speculation, but such information exists. Either you recognize the current situation now, in March-April, and we end this conflict, or if you don't recognize it, by the time of the official and final signing, we will put forward claims on additional regions. So this scenario is being worked out, and we can see that everything is aligning with the offensive operations that the Russian side continues to carry out. To reiterate, Kamenska, as we can see, may already be encircled. While geolocations confirming this have not yet been published, the sources spreading this information are quite reliable. Next, we move to Kupiansk. There is also footage here. There is a slight adjustment to the front line in the Zaporizhzhia area. Ukrainian sources are publishing footage of strikes on Russian units. Based on the video published by the 151st Mechanized Brigade of the Ukrainian Armed Forces, we've made a slight adjustment to the map in this area. It seems minor, but it's not the most important. Yesterday, we touched on the topic of a Telegram channel called Operational Space, which, as they say, publishes information related to the Western troop grouping. Today, they continued to publish information. Recall that yesterday we discussed that some pro-Russian sources are already asserting that the Russian side is currently storming the settlement of Yampil. We discussed this in detail yesterday. Today, these channels are spreading information that the Russian armed forces have already entered and are clearing settlements such as Chishchenkovka, Kondrashevka, and Malaya Shapkovka. This is the map they are drawing. If we summarize everything that is being depicted here by the pro-Russian channel, at the moment, the Russian Federation controls approximately this bridgehead. I repeat, none of the sources have confirmed this information yet, as it is a very serious advance. We have not yet received confirmation regarding the Lyman direction, but such an advance is being depicted here. It's very interesting to observe how the situation will develop, and ultimately, we would really like to start receiving some evidence, because if footage confirming this information starts to appear, we will understand that the situation in the northern Kupiansk direction, and in the Kupiansk direction in general, is radically different from what is being described and depicted by most Telegram channels and sources. Next, we move to the Chasiv Yar and Toretsk directions, where the Russian Federation has been conducting offensive operations for the 4th consecutive day. Today, some objective control footage appeared from the settlement of Chasiv Yar. Of course, it might seem that the footage is likely archival, but snow fell recently, the weather was bad, it was below freezing, and there were several days of snow, so it's possible the footage is fresh. In this footage, we can observe a Russian assault operation, and Ukrainian units are striking somewhere in this forested area. Based on this footage, we've slightly adjusted the map in this contested area. On the Toretsk direction, the Russian army continues its advance. Today, additional objective control footage appeared, confirming a breakthrough by Russian units north of the Toretskaya mine. And in this footage, we can observe the work of the 28th Brigade of the Ukrainian Armed Forces striking the positions of the Russian army on the territory of the mine itself. Let me remind you that yesterday, objective control footage was published showing Russian soldiers occupying positions, trenches and dugouts far to the north and northwest of the settlement of Toretsk and the Toretskaya mine. A strike was geolocated at this point yesterday, and based on this point, we adjusted the map yesterday accordingly. Today, we are receiving further confirmation of their presence in the northern part of the mine, as well as confirmation from various cartographers. So, we can see that the fighting for northern Toretsk has either already concluded or is approaching its logical end. The situation in the Zabalka micro-district is still unclear, as it is not yet clear how things are developing there. The Russian army is also continuing its advance in the pocket between Toretsk and Chasiv Yar. Here, we have the settlements of Livka and Belgorod. But in reality, there are a large number of strongholds of the Ukrainian armed forces here. It feels like there is some kind of underground city in this pocket. It's hard to predict how quickly the Russian army will advance here, but we can see that Russian units are gradually moving forward. Perhaps not as quickly, but they are advancing. Next, we move to the Pokrovsk direction. The main events today unfolded in the settlement of Shevchenko. Today, some neutral cartographers, as well as objective control footage from this section of the front, have provided a significant amount of information and evidence that Russian units have managed to fully restore control over the settlement of Shevchenko after counterattacks by the Ukrainian armed forces, which were carried out in early March and late February, almost parallel to and at the same level as the Russian operation in the Zaporizhzhia region. Based on today's footage and geolocation, we are finally marking Shevchenko as under the control of the Russian armed forces, thereby emphasizing that as of March 20th, Russia has managed to regain control over all positions lost during the Ukrainian counteroffensive. All these territories, according to most experts and those who track the front line through geolocations, have long been marked in favor of the Russian Federation, so nothing changes here. And on the Zaporizhzhia direction today, after several days of pause, the Russian army has resumed its assault operations towards Sherbaki, Mali Sherbaki, Stepov, and today the settlement of Lobkov was also mentioned in the reports. Let me remind you once again that at the very beginning we discussed a strike on Kropivnitsky, where a train carrying ammunition was destroyed, apparently heading towards Zaporizhzhia to, let's say, support Ukrainian units in this section of the front. However, these units did not receive their supplies, and the Russian army has once again launched a decisive assault and clearing, or rather, a final clearing of this entire region. Well, we will observe how this story ends and whether the Russian army will move further. And today, let's say Kherson has been unusually active, to be more precise. A large number of strike footage has been published over the past day, either on warehouses or with FABS, air-dropped bombs. Near the stadium, we can see an explosion. Perhaps a warehouse was destroyed as a result of a drone strike. Perhaps it was a FAB hit. It's hard to tell from the footage what exactly happened here. We can see some secondary detonation. A bit further north, we see another FAB strike on the positions of the Ukrainian armed forces. And again, in Kherson, near the settlement of Tamarine, another explosion. So we can see that Russia is once again increasing the intensity of air-dropped bomb strikes on the positions of the Ukrainian armed forces on the Ukrainian side of the Dnipro River. Thank you for watching. Subscribe to the channel, leave your likes, and all the best to you.